Welcome back to N2 the Chatterverse, where two gents share their 2 cents on pop media. I am Victor Danders, the hardest working man in comics.
And I'm Bill, and as much as I whine, I hate whiners.
And we're about to stir the pot just a little bit with a conversation that is a little bit like industry specific, but then not all at the same time. Okay, so here's the thing. So, buddy of mine, I was talking about San Diego. I was like, hey, I hope I'm going to see you there. And he's like, nah, I'm not going to go. And he kind of revealed that he is kind of falling out of love with the way San Diego works. And it's kind of become like this echo that I've heard from other creators that have been like complaining about Comic Cons very specifically over, you know, who gets top billing and the amount of content that is focused towards those things versus comics or whatever. And it strikes me as something very interesting because I personally don't have that issue, right? Like I seem to, years ago, I'm trying to remember who it was that asked me, and they were like, how come you're still so optimistic about cons? And I was like, I don't have a reason not to be. And they're like, oh, comics haven't screwed you over yet? And I'm like, no. And they're like, just wait. And I'm like, wow, like, okay, that's a mindset. And I think if you have that about comics, then Comic Cons as an extension, you are just waiting for it to leave you behind.
No, and I get that, but I got that from a retailer side.
Yeah.
Where it was like you had a comic book that came out a month ago for X amount of dollars, and then you were selling it 10 times what the value was a month later.
Right.
And that's what really turned me off about it. But as an industry, I can also see that too, because it's been predicated on that from the get-go.
Definitely, right? Like that's always been true.
Yeah.
So the thing for me kind of became this question. I went to LinkedIn and, you know, posted about it, and I had quite a few responses. I'm still getting responses to it, which I think is great. And it was people talking about how what Comic-Con offers, they've kind of fallen out of love with. And there's a very distinct line between when we were fans of something and when we became exhibitors or practitioners within that space. And I think that there is ultimately like a lapse in responsibility once you become a practitioner. Like, you are now part of the show. So the value and things that you think the show is supposed to represent and give is part of your responsibility to make happen.
Yeah.
And I'm not hearing that from my fellow creatives. And the first thing that I thought of was, is that true in the concept of you working for a movie theater? It has not stopped you from liking watching movies in a theater. But
no.
you very, very specifically talked about how you have reorganized how you do it to fit your own interests. And I would love to hear you share that with us.
I get to watch movies by myself. Or, you know, with a small group of people.
Right.
Like, I would say in the last, 7-8 years, I've had consistently one companion, and that's you.
Yeah.
Whether or not you bring anyone, whether or not I bring anyone. But it's very rarely that I watch something by myself, but it's always available to me. But it's also whether or not I want to take the time to do it. Because there's sometimes that, and I'm like a lot of people, that I can just as easily watch it at home.
Right.
But there's sometimes that, you know, I actually want to see it on the big screen. And not necessarily the biggest screen, but a bigger screen that I have at home with a better sound system.
Yeah. And it's not like you, having seen behind the curtain, go, well, movie theaters suck because I know this, and this. You go, it's still a viable space for me to watch this thing that's meant for me to watch it in this space. You just take more control over how the experience works for you.
Yes.
And
not everyone can do that, though.
To that end, sure. But I think we can, right? Like, I think that there's way more from a exhibitor's creative side of things that we can do that we don't take that responsibility.
Well, and I think when it comes to shows, it's more or less, I've given you my money, now give me what I want. Which,
dang, that hits.
That's the problem with that is they give you what you want,
right?
You just don't see it.
Let's go.
Because you have to go look for it.
Yes.
You know, there is Hall H at Comic-Con,
right,
in San Diego. You know, not everyone can get in,
right.
And there are people I know that don't want to go.
Right.
And they will specifically not go for that. and I'm like, that's fine,
right?
But
it's still gonna happen.
Yeah,
like, that's not...
like, and and these are people that I've heard are they're over it, and I'm like,
right.
That's fine. If you're over it, you're over it. If you're quote unquote burnt out,
yeah.
The convention center's huge.
There is something for you somewhere.
Yes, right. And Hall H is one of
right.
many halls.
Not even that the convention center is huge. There are things in hotels.
Yeah.
There's tons of
Well, here's
stuff.
the thing though, is that Hall H is on the first floor.
Yes. Yes. You haven't got to the second floor.
You haven't gone to the second floor. And
Which is true.
And it's just like and then the show floor is halls, shockingly enough, A through G.
Stop.
I know, it's hard to believe.
What? This is crazy.
Yeah, that's just hard to believe, isn't it?
But so from an exhibitor's point of view, right? The other thing for me is I hear it all the time, it's celebrity based and things like that. And I'm not even just saying like San Diego. Premier Comic Cons in general, people get upset because celebrities are getting top billing. Celebrities are bringing in the most money. Right. Like let's be frank here.
Well, it's just like a movie. Tom Cruise, you're not going to put even the word "and" is supposed to mean something. But the only time you put "and Tom Cruise" is if everyone's getting paid like, scale.
Tropic Thunder.
And he's there for more than a cameo.
Yes. That's
less than a starring role.
That's what that is.
But yeah, the would I want to see Chris Evans at a con? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've gone to cons specifically to see David Tennant.
There you go. And the thing is it's not shade to the creators. It's not that. It's just because somebody else is the draw doesn't mean that you can't be.
Yeah.
But you have to learn how to make yourself the draw.
Well, and people walk the floor.
Yes.
And we see it all the time.
Yes.
It's the
head down.
I'm doing something. I'm sorry. Can I help you?
Yeah.
What do you want?
Why are you bothering me right now?
Yeah.
And I guess that is kind of my perspective on it is I want to do a call to action of creators. Take charge of your presence at a show. And it's not, and that's part of the thing for me is when it comes to experience, too many people are tying the value of the experience to how much money they make. And I don't think that is appropriate either, right?
Yeah.
Because if you were going as a fan, the amount of money that you spent, you are still kind of responsible for the things that you enjoy. Like they're giving you all kinds of stuff to do. You got to find the things that you're going to go to that are going to make the money that you spent worthwhile to you. When we become behind the table, vendors, we assume that the value is how many people we can capture to sell our stuff to. But
you use the word capture though. That's something you would do. Well, but not like everyone.
Well, I think that's part of the problem. Is what is it that people are expecting when you spent hundreds, thousands of dollars to have a booth set up? What exactly are you expecting to land in your pocket? That's the thing I don't understand. Like that's the biggest part of the puzzle that has always vexed me because I'm like, people assume if I've spent this money, then it's supposed to equate to a certain amount of money that I'm definitely going to get back. And just that transactional piece is silly to me. It's not that. You have to engage because everybody in the room is having the exact same thought.
Yeah.
So how do you stand out if you don't stand out? If you don't do anything to make your presence a little bit bigger or better or more meaningful, then it doesn't matter that you're in the room. Like you were just another pillar thing that I'm going to walk by because
I do wish they'd give a little more room to Artist Alley.
I can get with that.
To walk around because it doesn't seem like there's enough to get through.
I agree.
And I could see people getting pushed out of the way. Like if they keep getting bumped into, then I'm like, it's not worth it.
It's not worth it to me.
Yeah.
But that unto itself is another piece of the puzzle for me. Mm-hmm. Artist Alley is a rally point. It's not your only point. But it's a good station to be like, hey, come find me here.
You could set up a meet and greet somehow.
Yep.
I've followed people that have done that, and I've met up with them, and you can make it something that you have to pay for. You make it something that you're like, hey, let's just hang out.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that gets me is when the critique goes to the show, and it's never a matter of what can I do to make this experience better, like for myself, for others, whatever. And it's almost as though like by buying in, we assume less responsibility, but expect more for it. And I don't necessarily understand that.
I think that like the times that we've gone, not like every day that we're there, but there are multiple times that we're like, we need to do this next year. And at the end of the show, this is how we're going to do this next year.
Yep.
And I know that you've kept stepping it up to be more industry-wide. And I'm almost to that point myself. I enjoy going to Hall H, but those seats aren't comfortable.
Right. And
I won't stay the whole time that I need to stay, and I'll take that pass. Especially if they're going to show a 2-hour movie in there, I am not going to sit in there and watch it on, which is once again a bigger screen than I have at home, but not a big screen compared to what I've got here.
Exactly.
It definitely doesn't have the sound.
Right.
And then there's 6,000 people.
Right.
And I'm talking about Deadpool.
Very specific.
Because there's something going on, and I'm sure they're going to show the movie. We're going to be lucky enough to watch press screening of it. So I will know the lines that I've missed because everyone's talking, but also I don't need to be that.
Right. And if that was your first time watching it, that can be aggravating.
Yes.
Without question. But again, having that mindset right there where you go, okay, that's not what I want, right? Is it not just as feasible for anybody to go, okay, well, I don't want that thing, so I'm going to do this thing to counter that. You know what I mean? Like, what were you going to say?
Well, no, it's funny because we talk about how it's something we'd want to do, but we don't want to do at the same time. And we're already going to be doing almost the exact same thing. Because, I've been able to reach out to someone and basically set up our own personal screening for the second time.
But that's the thing, right? Like you take charge of the experience you want to have.
Right.
That's the thing that, like, collectively, that is the messaging that I want to get across to my fellow creators is take charge of the experience that you want to have. If you're waiting for the show to provide it, that might be too difficult. Or more, no, not that's too difficult. Understand that you are part of the show.
Yeah.
You are part of the you bought in. You're part of the show. You're invested. The experience that you want to have, now is your responsibility to create it. Yeah. And whether that is sitting at your table, walking away from your table, venturing to other panels. Like, I don't see, and again, I get it from an economic standpoint. You've got all these thousands of people that are walking by and you're trying to, fish them over to your table. But the truth of the matter is, guys, and I've been saying this for years, some of the best places and spaces for you to actually hold court and make business, panel rooms. Those are like-minded people sitting there for 45 minutes to an hour at a time that you can pull with some just participating.
Yeah.
You were with me at the Indie Comics panel last year.
Yeah.
And what was the prevailing joke? Victor, why aren't you up here?
Right. Are you on that panel this year?
I'm not on that panel this year.
Is that panel happening this year?
I don't know. I have to look.
Are your friends going to be there?
I think David Walker is definitely going to be there. I got to see who else might be there. But again, that was the prevailing joke of, Victor, how come you're not on this panel?
Right.
But what I did do, even in spite of not being on the panel, I went and asked a question so that everyone, despite the fact that the room was, definitely teasing, that people had an understanding of why I was being asked that question. And then at the end, people, well, what do you do? What's your book? Da da da. And I had stuff to give to people, actively making myself a part of the show experience because I was there. Why not do that? Like, I think that's the part that is the most, I don't know. It confuses me as to why that seems difficult for people to conceptually believe in themselves to do versus anything else.
Well, it becomes the they're stuck in a rut kind of thing.
Okay.
It's just like, this is the way everything worked. This is the way it's always been type thing. And whereas I would expect you to do something like when you went to Cleveland. You have a QR code. You're like, hey, if you don't have time, take this with you.
Yeah.
Scan it at some point in time. You'll be able to read whatever is on there, and these are the other books, and they'll be able to show you the other books I have there, and that kind of stuff.
There you go. I want us to collectively be as creative in our experiences at Comic-Cons as we are in the work that we create to showcase at Comic-Cons. I think that the separation of our line of creativity and where we draw that stopping point, we need to push that back even further, because there was always somebody who figured this out. You know what I mean? Like BarCon was created because some guys just wanted to get together and drink after a show, and people found out about it and it became a thing. It wasn't that the show provided this.
Right.
People did it. And again, at the same time, because it has this term BarCon, it's a part of the show. So be the thing that you want to see at Comic-Cons. Start it. Make it happen. You don't have to wait to be invited to the industry. You're in the industry. You bought in already. Like, do your thing.
Well, I would liken what it sounds like is day trading. It's like instant gratification. They put in the money into the investment to be there, but they want the money. They want the money right then and there instead of a long-term investment.
Yes.
Which instead is, instead of walking away with cash, how much do you make over the year because of that show?
Exactly.
Once again would go to the barcode part of it, or just have a flyer that has your
info, whatever.
Yeah,
like do mail drops, whatever. Like, there's ways that you can make this very lucrative, and it's not necessarily about the immediacy of money, but like you could blow up in a really cool way. I remember Ben Templesmith, who has been tabling at San Diego more recently, but he lives in San Diego and would pick like a coffee shop and set up there and offer to do sketches. Like you'd pay commission rate type stuff, and he would just be at a coffee shop in the gas lamp area, and he made it work. Because again, like, him having to be at the show wasn't truly a necessity. It wasn't like he was still a part of the show, even without being at the show. So if you can do that stuff, and I think any of us can, like, I don't think there's anything that stops us from doing it. Even if it's a matter of, you get 5-6 creators together and go, everybody chip in $500, and we're gonna buy up a bar for a night. And now we're going to set up our stuff here, and this is our party tonight. Game changer.
Speaking of which, I'd heard that Jim Lee has gone back to
doing commissions.
He
has.
And then I was like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then I heard the price. I'm like, all right, I have no problem with that.
Yep.
And I'm like, and I've heard there's outrage over it. I'm
yes,
like,
there is.
Why?
Entitlement of accessibility.
Yeah. Okay, but here's the problem: is that he's busy.
Yes.
And also he's established very well. Okay, so was it 20 grand?
Yeah.
Is that what? And I completely understand that number.
Yes.
I completely understand it.
He is at a point where blank, if he signs Jim Lee, it has value. Like, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
And the benefit is that at this point his art skill has not dropped any. Like, it's not like I can just do something and I sign my name and automatically it's valuable. He still takes the time to make it look really good.
Yeah.
And he is still co-publisher of DC Comics.
Yeah,
Like, the dude is busy.
Yeah.
I think the biggest issue with it is how many people saw what he's asking for and they go, oh, I should change my prices. Are you Jim Lee? No, you're not. Why do you assume what Jim can do has any correlation to what you do?
Well, I can see them raising their prices as in the same way that concerts would do it for scalpers.
Okay, I give you that.
Now, am I saying that artist X should go, well, I was charging, $150. Well, should be $5,000.
But that seems to be the response to people, which that bothers me.
Well, you have to learn. You have to go,
Yeah.
okay, well, I was charging $150. I'll charge $200 this show.
Let's see what happens.
Well, I got so many commissions. Maybe I should go to 3.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and do more shows.
Yes. Those are part of the metrics that I think people don't take into account, like from a business level.
Yeah.
But still want to assess their appearance at shows from a business level. And again, like, we're artists, we're creatives, we're not necessarily taught business.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that we still can't figure this stuff out collectively in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, and in this case, this is a guy that's figured it out.
Yes. He has absolutely figured it out.
Yeah. He has done, I think, what he's wanted to do in life. He got established in the comic business.
Yep.
He co-created a line.
Yep.
He cashed out.
Yep.
And then became basic top dog at a very large comic book company.
Yeah. That I don't want to say like he's comfortable, but he's earned his spot.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the biggest thing right there is like he's earned what he's gotten to do. And unless you are either on that same path and I don't think anyone actually is. I'm going to be straight up frank about that. I don't think anyone's on the exact same path that Jim Lee is on.
No.
Because the early benchmarks, no one has hit. He still has the highest single issue sold of all time. And that's over 30 years old at this point. So,
disclaimer.
Yes, there's multiple copies of it, multiple iterations,
multiple covers,
but yes. Still, like, it's, however he got it down.
I tell you what, though, if Todd McFarlane had done multiple covers of Spider-Man, it probably would have been the same.
Yeah, yeah.
He would have battled him for
absolutely,
it, especially at the time.
Absolutely.
And he's the only other person I think that has come close.
Yes,
but he's gone off in a different direction. And one of his characters, one of his creations, has become very popular, and for whatever reason, he thinks he can direct because I think he saw that Frank Miller got credited for directing.
He did,
and
I was like, oh,
well, if he can do it, I can do it. And then he actually directed, and then no one saw the movie.
Well, and again, that's part of my thing is just because you see someone else do it,
yes, exactly,
does not mean that applies to you. And I think that's one of the bigger things that the industry as a whole needs to kind of embrace. It's about the eye, right? Your presentation and presence at a show is really more about you than it is the show itself. What you get out of it is really more about you than the show itself. Worst case scenario, let's say you went to a show and it bombed, like it was trash. You can look at it and go, oh, this show is terrible. But could you have been a shining light there? Could you have done it?
And that's easily done, though.
Yeah.
Also, because all you have,
if you're set up for it,
all you have to do is be nice to people. And that doesn't always work.
But it can.
I know, but it does. But it's not always easy to do.
Sure.
I remember when John Schnepp was here.
Yeah.
And there was a guy that was giving him backhanded compliments left and right, and he walked away. And I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. I'm like, how do you put up with that? Oh, he's been doing that for 3 days.
Wow.
And he's just like, I just don't pay attention to him. I'm like, you're a better man than I am.
Yeah, because we would have thrown something. Hands, chairs.
But if you realize that if you're nice to someone, and let's say that person thinks it's a terrible show, they'll have a
different perspective.
They'll have one memory of it that is like, but that one guy was great.
Yeah.
I would go to the next show he's at.
Yep. And that's
right.
That's the currency.
Yeah.
That's the currency we all should be seeking.
Yeah.
Is at the very least fandom.
Yeah.
Stop chasing money, chase fandom, and remember what it was like to be a fan, and create those experiences, even if it's not on the show floor. Tweet people out. Yo, I'm at dinner. And first 5 people that come through, I'm going to give you such and such. Maybe you do that, right? And worst case scenario, you're hounded all night long.
Well, I think you put that in a different perspective. I just ate dinner. I'm on my way to get a coffee.
There you go.
Because that way, you're not interrupting someone.
They're like, there's a line of people. Fair. But yeah, like, I'm going to go get a coffee. Who wants to come with me? Now you're engaging, you're building. It's a great way to reposition what your expectations are of shows and your responsibility to enact them while you're there. So that's my call to action, everybody. I want you to have fun again, to be fans again. And I think ultimately that comes from you taking more responsibility for what you can do at a show versus what you're expecting the show to do for you. So that's my PSA. We'll see how much conversation I'll get off of this after that. But thank you guys for tuning into the Chatterverse. Once again, I'm Victor Dandridge, the hardest working man in comics.
I'm Bill, and come find me and start whining.